everyone. I want to talk today about how do we train on a cut. Now, I'm in a deficit right now, and I've been posting a lot about it on Twitter, and how I'm going about the process. And I posted today about you've got to train hard on a cut. You still got to try and beat the logbook over time, over the course of the training block. You still got to try and add reps, add a little bit of weight. And I've got some comments saying, oh, can't we just train at maintenance, and all this type of stuff and this type of thinking, and it just got me thinking, and it sparked the idea for this video. And a lot of you are you're training wrong when it comes to being in a deficit. You're already going into the gym with a defeatist attitude before you've even started, and it's fucking you all up. So I wanted to go over just five big points for the actual training session. Forget about when it comes to diet and all that type of stuff, recovery. That's a topic for another video again. I want to go over just the actual training session and what you need to do in terms of your training when you're on a cut. Okay, so first thing, we need to train at something called your MEV, your minimum effective volume. Okay, so we all have a minimum amount of volume that we need each week to stimulate muscle growth or keep the muscle hanging around. Now, for most people, it's in the 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. So say for chest, 10 to 20 sets for chest per week in order to maximally grow the chest or keep the muscle hanging around. So we need to be at MEV. Now, let's say when you're in a surplus, you might be closer to the 20 sets per week. But when we're in a deficit, this is where training smart comes in. And we might be close to that 10 to 12 sets per week. So that could be split up, maybe 6 sets of chest on Monday and then 6 sets of chest on Thursday. So you're hitting your minimum effective volume just enough to keep the muscle hanging around, and you're not doing too much that you can't recover from. And you get no benefit in a deficit for doing 20 sets if you get the same results with 10 or 12. Does that make sense? So that's the first thing that you do. You set up your training. It's just stimulate, not annihilate, just enough stimulus to keep the muscle hanging around, and then you get out of the gym and recover, because you don't have the same recovery abilities as you would do if you were at maintenance levels calories or a surplus. You just don't have the same raw materials of calories. Look at it like a builder supplying materials to build a house. When you're in a surplus, you've got a lot of bricks. When you're in a deficit, you don't have as many bricks, so it's harder to build the house. Does that make sense? That's the whole ideology behind training with a minimum effective dose. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, majority of our work in the 6 to 20 rep range. Now, it's well known, it's been well shown that all rep ranges will build muscle, whether that be 1 to 30. But why have I not said we can train 1 to 5? Now, you can if you really want to. I just don't think that's the way to do it. Because if you're training in sets of 1 to 5 in a deficit, sets of 1 to 5 with heavier loads, they're more neurologically taxing, and it's not needed in order to maintain our muscle mass. Your best option, again, this is all training and doing it as best as you possibly can, and being as smart as you possibly can. It's best to just train in that 6 to 20 rep range. Utilise some of the same exercise that you built your muscle on, but just train in that 6 to 20 rep range. Again, for me, it makes no sense to be doing heavy deadlift singles when you're in a deficit. In order to accumulate the total amount of volume and workload that you need to keep the muscle hanging around by doing singles and doubles, it's not worth the neurological efficiency and the central nervous fatigue that will bring about. So that's the whole reason behind it. We're just trying to train smart here. Okay? That's number two. And then number three, every one of your work sets should be within 0 to 3 reps in reserve. You've heard me talk about this before. So 0 reps in reserve is a set of failure, okay, and then 3 reps in reserve is you could do 3 more reps, okay. So we're in that range of failure and maybe 2 or 3 reps in the tank. Every one of your sets has got to be like that. If not, you're not training hard enough. I've said this before. Let's say you're doing a bench press and you're doing a set of 10. If you do your first set of 10 and you get off that, or you get off the bench, and you could have done another 6 or 7 reps, that set is doing sweet fuck all in order to stimulate hypertrophy or keep the muscle hanging around. You are not signaling the muscle to hang about. It's just too easy. You still got to train hard. you don't need to train right to failure, like 0 reps in reserve for every set. We need to be in this range. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to get into how we can potentially progress through a block with that. I'll get into that. So that's number 3. Number 4, again, I always talk about the same things because they're extremely effective, and this is what you need to nail down. If you nail down these points, you're going to be good to go. But number 4, it's using exercises with a high stimulus to fatigue ratio. Now this was a game changer for my training years ago when I found this out. It was a term that I'd never heard about. I learned a lot of this from Mike Israel from Renaissance Periodization. You'll find them on YouTube, great content. But I've learned a lot from them. And exercises with a high stimulus to fatigue ratio, what it means is you were going to get a great stimulus on the muscle without the extra fatigue on the nervous system. Now, for example, I've used this before, let's take a low bar squat with the widest stance possible. You're going to be able to use the most amount of weight for that. Now, is that the best idea in the dieting phase? Probably not. You're going to be better with something like a high bar pause squat or a front squat, making the movements a lot more difficult, which forces you to use less overall loads while still getting the same stimulus on the quads and the glutes. So let's say for a low bar squat, if we were doing sets of 8, and we could do sets of 8 with 180 kilos, that's going to fucking beat us up. We don't have the recovery abilities to deal with that in a deficit. So what's a smart move? Instantly, by switching from low bar to maybe high bar pause squats for sets of 8, the load might come all the way down to 120, 130 kilos, while you're still getting the same stimulus on the quads. So automatically you drop 50 kilos of absolute load on the body, the spine, the central nervous system. By dropping the load and going straight to high bar pause squats, you're still getting the same stimulus without the extra fatigue. So if you can do this all across your training days for all of your exercises, your cutting phase will just go that much more smoothly, and you won't be as beat up. Again, these are all high IQ training moves which I'm trying to educate you all to implement into your training because they work. So that's number 4. And then number 5, I spoke about this at the start of the video. You've got to fight to beat the logbook. Whatever you done last week in the gym, just because you're on a deficit doesn't mean that we're going to come in and always feel weak and we can accept dropping weight or dropping reps all the time. No, you've got to fight like fuck, fight tooth and nail to beat that logbook. If you do that for a 5 or 6 week training block, you're giving the body a reason to hang on to the muscle mass. That is what everyone fucks up on when they're in a deficit. They start training, they don't have as much food in them, they may feel a little bit lethargic. It happens to the best of us, it happens to me. Like today, I didn't really want to train, I didn't feel that great, but I still went in, looked at what I had to beat from last week, and I done it. It's only a small little beat, but I done it. I made sure that I beat the logbook, and I give my body a reason to hang on to the muscle mass and strength that I've built. That's what you need to do. If you go in and nocebo yourself and think that you're going to be weak, you will lose muscle mass. That is the fastest way to lose muscle mass and end up looking skinny at the end of a cut. You still got to train hard, but if you do all of these other factors, you train that minimum effective dose, you're using exercises with a high stimulus to fatigue ratio, beating your logbook isn't as hard because you've organised your training plan smart. Does that make sense? You've done everything you can in order to be recovered and as fresh as you possibly can to be able to keep beating the logbook and ensuring progressive overload is happening. Okay? So they're the 5 main tips. Now I'm going to remove all this from the board and I want to go over just very quickly. So let's say we're going through a 4-week block, and how can we progress something? Let's say I'm going to go over a pause squat. How can we progress that each week while still trying to beat the logbook? So let me get into it. Okay, I need to get better at being more organised with doing this, but again, the content is quality, so you don't matter, or you don't really mind. So let me get into it. So let's go week 1 here, week 2, week 3, week 4. So your first week of your training block on a cut is crucial. Now we're doing pause squats here, okay? pull a squat. So let's say we're going to start off with 3 sets of 8 on pull a squat, okay? So we're going to start off 3 by 8 at an RPE 7, which will be a reps in reserve 3, so 3 more reps in the tank. So this could be something like you could do 140 kg for 1 set, then you dropped it down to 130 kg for your 2 remaining sets to remain within the 0 to 3 reps in reserve, okay? Because after the first set, you may be a little bit fatigued. So you've got that's your starting point for the block, okay? And you were on an RPE 7, a couple of reps in the tank, great. Stimulated the muscle, and we're going to keep it hanging around. So then what do we do for the next week? Now again, this is where you've got to be smart, trying to satisfy the law of overload as best as you can. We just need to try and beat this in some capacity. So how could we do that? That could be as simple as 142.5 kg for 1 set, and then again, coming right down to 130 kg for your 2 sets. So all we've done, we've bumped that first top set up by 2.5 kilos. This is where I always say to everyone, buy small change plates, 1.5, 2 kilo plates, or even smaller. Always have micro plates in your bag. If your gym doesn't have them, get them yourself. You can get them on Amazon for about $20 or £20, whatever. Just make sure you have them. So that's all we've done, is went a little bit heavier on the top set. That's it. Stimulated the muscle and strength to stay around. So then what do we do on week 3? Okay, we could keep 142.5 kg for that 1 set again. Okay, well now we're going to be smart. Let's bump the 2 back down sets up. 132.5 kg for 2 sets. So can you see, this week we're just going to bump the back downs up. We're being patient and being very slow with the progressions, but the key is that we're not losing weight and we're not dropping reps. We're maintaining and slightly improving performance. So then that leads us into week 4, and it's simple again, just following this thread of progression. We can go 145 for 1 set, and then maybe again 132.5 for 2. So there you go, and then your deload on week 5 will be a deload, and then you come back again. But it's about, we went from 140 here to 145 for 1 set by the end of the block, continuing that thread of progression slowly, and the back downs slowly went up. So we ended the block, this might be closer to 1 rep in reserve, and we might have started here 3 rep in reserve, but each week maybe these were 2 reps in reserve, maybe these were between 1 and 2 reps in reserve, and then on this last week we were 1. But we were still trying to maintain performance and beat the logbook each week going into the gym. So that's what it's all about. Don't nocebo yourself and fuck yourself up. And that can be for the main movements. And what I like to do, let's say for accessories, now whether it was a leg extension, if you've done 3 sets of 15 on a leg extension in your first week, so 3 by 15 here at 40 kilo, just each week try and add an extra rep, a little bit more weight. Just always try and beat the logbook. I take a picture of the logbook before I go in the gym, or a screenshot, and I'm conscious of what I've done last week, and I go into the set trying to beat that. That's what you need to get into your brain when you're on a cut. We're not here to fuck around. We can still be strong and still maintain performance and increase when we can, but just be smart about your progressions and be patient, do it slow. Don't go from 140 then to 150 in 1 week. No way you're going to do that on a deficit. So it's about being smart, slow progression. Slow progression is the way forward, okay? So let me know what you think. Any questions, just drop them down below and I'll get some more videos out to you.